I'm not sure about this. Frank Lampard, I thought we'd see him back in the game, Martin Keown, but we haven't. Frank has been speaking to Gary Neville, Simon, on the Overlap podcast.
Yeah, good podcast that, by the way.
It is indeed. It is indeed. You're quite right. And Frank's been saying a bunch of things, such as, and this is where we maybe raised an eyebrow or two, I would have thought, Martin. Frank was saying to Gary, I want to work. I'm ready to work. I've enjoyed parts of being out of the game. It's given me different perspectives. It's given me a lot of reflection to use that to plan for the future. But then further down he says, I'm fortunate to be in a place where I want to work, but I'm not desperate to work. So what does that tell us?
It tells me what you've done, actually, because I've read an article from him where he seems very positive, and maybe you've picked out something a little bit controversial there, because I think it was difficult for Frank Lampard.
That's what he said.
Yeah, but I think if we think about what happened to him, so it was a bit of a jigsaw puzzle with that team. He was talking about, wasn't he, almost too many players. But the next manager then came in and put it together, all those pieces beautifully, and actually won a Champions League.
Right.
He was a Chelsea man. To watch that final was very difficult for him. He's also said that.
Sure.
It almost hurt him to see it, but at the same time, he was a part of that victory in a small way when he introduced certain people to the club. Thiago Silva, one of those. Reece James, giving him his debut. Mason Mount. So all of these things he helped to put in place. And I think it hurt him so much that I think that's why he's taking his time now to come back. He's now saying now, thankfully, because I don't want him lost to the game, because I do feel he could be an outstanding manager. He did get a great opportunity. He wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
At Chelsea.
But it's up to Frank not to be lost to the game, isn't it?
Well, it is. But he can only come back when he's ready, Jim, to come back. And the good news is he's now saying he is ready. He wouldn't have taken the Norwich job if he wasn't. He obviously felt then he wasn't ready for that challenge. Can he be picky and choosy about it? I think as time goes on, no. I think it becomes less about that and more about him and his recovery in all of this. That's what we're trying to get to. So I think he's now ready to come back to the game. I'm pleased about that. Whether it will be in the Premier League, whether it be in the Championship, remains to be seen. But he's got to be 100% committed to do that job. Whether there's absolutely no point in taking.
But I think the question is, he is clearly ready to go back. He didn't fancy Norwich. So it wasn't necessarily about the fact that he wasn't ready to go to Norwich. I don't think he fancied the landscape of Norwich. And Dean Smith has bounced back after probably the most disparaging of circumstances, which is being drop-kicked out of the boyhood football club that you love and adored and was your dream job, and has the wherewithal to get back on the horse. Now, it's horses for courses, isn't it, to use the horse analogy, because different people recover at different rates. But Jim's question, whether he took a selected part of the newspaper article or not, was really about, can Frank Lampard afford to be picky and choosy? Has he done enough in the game to be in that position as a manager, not as a player? And is he now beginning to limit himself for the opportunities that might come his way?
It's about him, the man, recovering from it was his beloved job, wasn't it, to take the Chelsea job? We know it came too soon.
Yeah.
And the fallout.
Recovering is it as bad as that?
I think
no, of course it's
I
not.
think so. Yeah.
I mean,
I do.
Man, it wasn't a national disaster.
No, but for him, it was
didn't
like
work out
it was
to
the start
Chelsea.
it was the start of a new career. He thought it was going to be ultra successful, a successful type personality. Everything's gone. He's turned it round everywhere he's been, hasn't he? When he was at West Ham, people were saying he shouldn't even be in the side. People were saying he was being selected just because it was a relation of.
I remember
Lampard,
that. I remember that. But he's saying this. Simon's right. There have been a few opportunities. I've been speaking to a couple of clubs and it didn't feel right for me. Okay, that's fine. But he does say, I'm fortunate to be in a place where I don't want to work, but I'm not desperate to work.
See,
he's honest.
But you don't want to hear that.
He's been honest.
You don't want to hear that. If I'm a football club owner, I want to hear somebody going, I am chomping at the bit to go and manage a football team. I'm chomping at the bit to go and disprove the naysayers that thought this job was too big.
There's mixed messages there. He's either ready or he's not.
Mm-hmm.
He either wants it or he doesn't. And he has to decide. But there's no point in taking a job he doesn't
But it sounds a bit
really want.
lightweight, doesn't it? I don't need to do it. Great. We're great that you're comfortable. We're great that you're an economic landscape around you. It tells that you can do it. But what you want is a hungry, focused, dynamic manager, not someone that's comfortable in their private life. That goes with the benefits of somebody that's settled and be able to build from a foundation. What you want somebody is someone that's really doubling down. Most of these football managers are comfortable. None of them need to work somewhere else. Conte doesn't need to work anybody else. He's been paid a king's ransom. We're talking about somebody coming in and saying,
at the end of this article,
I want to be successful.
He just says he's ready. He kind of talked his way through the article, and at the end of it, okay, it's mixed messages. But he's come out and
he says he's ready to work.
Ready.
But he does add, I'm not desperate to work.
Well,
he could have done maybe without throwing that in.
So he's not ready then, is he?
I mean, at the end of the day, I think Simon's right. What you want to hear from Frank now is, come get me. Come get me. You serious about life in football? You serious about where you want to go in football? I'm your man.
Well, we'll have to wait and see.
What does the
I
landscape look like
sincerely
for
hope-
Frank? Because, I mean, Steven Gerrard, the landscape looks like Rangers wins the league after 3 years, did his job. That's what he did. He was brought up to Scotland to win the league, and he did it on the third season. So it isn't that huge a story. He did his job. He's now gone into Villa with a club with an embarrassment of riches behind it in terms of two guys that understand the business and have inordinate amounts of money. But Lampard is sitting on the platform, waiting for a train to pick him up. And this train, there doesn't seem to be this abundance
But
of
I'm not surprised by that. Because
opportunities.
The journeys they've both been on have been very different, haven't they? So Gerrard goes to an enormous club in Rangers, but that's a perfect building block for his development, isn't it? He's now come back to Villa, and rightly so. And everyone feels maybe when Klopp decides to step away, if Gerrard progresses as he is and starts to
It's
do
about
well,
judgment,
he
isn't
could
it?
maybe
Yeah.
take that job.
Having
at
said that,
Liverpool.
Rangers would argue they're no building block for anyone. Rangers is not a passing through place for anybody.
But
No,
it
but I'm afraid they are.
clearly
Jim.
is.
I think they are.
Unfortunately, tragically, for
well, down
Scottish
here
football.
you lot think
in
that.
that
But
situation.
it is, Jim. Brendan Rodgers goes up to Scotland because he needs to rebuild his reputation, does phenomenal things for Celtic, but the moment a decent-sized job comes in the Premier League, he's off ski. Now, I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't give due respect to Celtic and Rangers, but tragically for Scottish football, that is where it is. Now, Frank Lampard made a decision. He could have stayed at Derby, not the Derby that's become after the Mel Morris situation and the meltdown of Derby, but he could have stayed there and learnt his trade. What he did was he took an advantage of an opportunity that some would say it was difficult for him not to, but most people that were sensible looked at it and said, too early, too much, too soon.
So what's next?
So that's the question, isn't
you
it?
You look at it and you think, well, obviously he thought Norwich were doomed, but maybe he would have. You might have thought he could rescue them. You know, Dean Smith obviously feels he could rescue them, and they've turned it around a little bit.
Yeah.
So you start to look above that. The Palace job didn't come his way. And if he doesn't get the job he wants, he's looking like he doesn't want to take it. Well, he'll
Or
have to
maybe
change
Dean's-
his attitude eventually because
That's
he's
the
not going to
point.
get a job otherwise.
Or maybe Dean Smith recognised his place on the food chain and thought to myself, I'm going to have difficulty walking to another Premier League job, so I might as well take one that looks like a Premier League job now. It might be a Championship job, but might be a Premier League job again. Whereas Frank sounds, and I like Frank and was a major supporter of his, that I felt he was harshly treated given they knew what they had there. When they took him on, they knew he was inexperienced. But Frank seems to have this perception that maybe there's delusions of grandeur in there, because I don't see any background record that's going to get Frank Lampard a big job, besides being Frank Lampard.
Yeah, and you don't want him to do anything he doesn't really want to do because he's never going to be successful if he doesn't
So
really
then
want
why
to
is
be
he doing
there.
interviews in the press? Either say it or don't say it. What do
I
you
think
mean,
he's just
Frank?
being honest.
Riddle
I think
me
he's
this,
just
riddle me
reflecting.
that.
I think he's just reflecting, and we shouldn't shoot him for that. I think he's reflecting on the honesty of what he went through when his favourite team,
And he's still
Chelsea, went
recovering
on to
from it.
win
I
the
know, it's
Champions League.
terrible. I know.
Okay, well, let's see where it goes. How long will it be before we see Frank in a job again? It's an interesting question, and the answer we don't really have. So we'll watch and we wait.
Jim White and Simon Jordan, Monday to Thursday morning, 10 till 1. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.